بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم.
So we talked about using a small amount of water in an obligation. That's a reason why water would not be purifying. And now we want to talk about water's color, taste, or smell changing significantly. Or if we want to say it in easier words, because the water changed. It's no longer purifying because it changed. So is it any change whatsoever? If your water has any sort of change whatsoever, you can't use it anymore? That's a question I have for you. Is that the case? No, it's not the case. Okay. So when water's color, taste, or smell changes significantly, then you can't use that anymore. We're going to talk about what that means. Even if it were plenty, even if it's a lot of water. Why is there a difference between a lot of water and a little bit of water? Because a lot of water is strong and a little bit of water is weak. So that's why, what did we cover? Using a small amount of water in an obligation, when that water dripped off of you, you could no longer use it again. Or when that water ran from the spot that you cleaned, according to the details we mentioned, then you can't use it again because it was a little bit of water. It lost its purifying power. But a lot of water is strong. So a lot of water doesn't lose its purifying power as easily as a little bit of water does. And when it comes to a lot of water, even a lot of water, if its color, taste, or smell changed significantly. But we already said that's not absolutely here. So every change because of blending with something other than soil or sea salt, from which the water is easily protected and prevents calling that liquid mere water. That's the rule right there. Every change because of blending with something other than soil or sea salt, from which the water is easily protected and prevents calling that liquid mere water. You can't call it water anymore. That's the change that removes its purifying property. So every change because of blending, that means fusing with the water. Who can give me an example of water changing not by blending with something? Give me an example of water changing not because of blending with something. Correct answer. The water could become stale and then its smell could change, for example, or its flavor could change. So that's an example of water changing not because of blending with something. That's a correct answer. So could we use that stale water for purification?
Yes.
Yes. Did it lose its purifying power?
No.
No, it did not. Someone might say, but it changed. So why it didn't lose its purifying power?
Nothing was added to it.
Because it didn't change by blending.
Blending. Blending. Okay. Added.
It didn't change by blending or fusing. Correct. Something else you said would, like if an unmixable substance. Okay. So wood was in the water and it doesn't fuse with the water, it just sits there in the water. And then the water changed from that. That's correct. That's correct. There's still another case. I'll just go ahead and tell you. You said, got to be careful. Bacteria can be present and does grow faster and stand still in water. Here, the case of bacteria, you're not going to worry about that in these religious judgments. Rather, this is what you're going to say. Is the water harmful or is not harmful? If the water is not harmful, what does that mean? It means apparently harmful. Like you don't need a microscope or a test lab or anything like that. Could you make wudu from the water and you will be fine, for example, then you use that. It will be obligatory. Like, what if someone claimed there's bacteria in the water and you have to make wudu and pray? So what you're going to do? You cannot make tayammum here. You're going to take that water that somebody claimed that has bacteria and you're going to make wudu with it and make a ghusl with it. Okay. You said, what's the name of the water that smells after existing in a place for a long time? So the case I was mentioning for you is the case of the water's smell changing because of being in a vicinity. Because of being in a vicinity. So let's look at our scenarios here. Let's try to think of covering all scenarios. We have water. Water that changed. Why is going to change? It's going to change either by itself or from something else, right? There's no third way. You want to do process of elimination. So if it changed by itself, like stale water, you can still use that for purification. You might not want to drink it, but we're not talking about that. So we talk about purification here. Yeah, it means old water. So it's either going to change by itself or it's going to change by something else. So if we just did the first one. So if it changed by something else, then what's our options here? Either it changed by something that contacted the water or not. There's no third option. Either it changed by something that contacted the water or not. Could it change by something that didn't contact the water? Yes, it could. That's the case I want to mention to you now. Like, what if there was a dead carcass close to the water, rotting, smelling really horrible, but it never touched the water? And then you came to the water and you found the water smelling like this carcass. Is that water purifying? Can you use it for purification? Yes, you can. Correct answer. Never lost its purifying power because this change is not from something blending in the water. So now we're at our last option, that the water changed by something that contacted the water. And here we have two cases because either what contacted the water blends with the water or not. So if it does not blend with the water, like a rock or a piece of wood, but it did change the water, it changed the water. So let's say you had a stick or a rock, you put it in the water, and then the water turned green and it started smelling like grass. Can you use that water for purification? Yes, you can. That's the correct answer. Because even though it changed, it didn't change by something blending in it. So what's left then is something blending in the water, fusing with the water. So any single thing that fuses with water and changes the water will remove the purifying power of the water? No. Blending with something other than soil or sea salt. Other than soil or sea salt. So that might be also a detail that you didn't catch before. Like you've learned mukhtasar, and you learned that the water changed, You can't use it. If it lost its name of water, you can't use it. That's correct. You might have even learned if it changed by blending. That's correct. But not absolutely, because it might blend with soil or it might blend with sea salt. In these cases, the water will not lose its purifying power. Even if you put that in there on purpose. As for the soil, it only makes the water murky, and it does not remove the purifying power of the water. I will illustrate an example for you. There's a patch of grass, and it was raining. So the ground is full of water. If you step there, your foot would go down into the ground. And what would come up? Water would come up. What would this water look like? Wouldn't it be the color of the soil, whatever that soil's color is? Yes. And what would you say? You would say, look at all this water. You didn't even deem that the change from the soil makes it not water anymore. It's still water. It's just murky. So can you put that murky water on your face and arms and your hair and on your feet for wudu? Is that valid? Yes, it is valid. Something in its pathway, we didn't get there yet. We didn't even get to something in its pathway yet. Because something in its pathway, that's unavoidable. When we say other than soil and sea salt, that's even if you put it in the water on purpose. Doesn't matter how murky as long as it's not mud or clay. So that's the case of the soil. And as for the sea salt, the scholar said sea salt does not remove the purifying power of water because it is created from water. They said sea salt is like ice. It is created from the water, and if it dissolves in the water, it does not remove the purifying power of the water. So that's even if you put it in there on purpose. Yes, even if the water, that's the whole point here we're saying. Yes. Sea salt specifically does not remove the purifying power of the water, even if you put it in the water on purpose. So why do you specifically say sea salt? For the reason now I just said to you. The scholar said sea salt is created from the water. It's like ice. They said just like ice, it's created from water like ice. And if you put it in the water and it dissolves, it's like ice dissolving into water. So it will not remove the purifying power of the water. Is there a difference between sea salt and salt? Yes, because there's sea salt and there's land salt. So the salt that comes from the land does not have the same judgment. Like the salt that comes from a mine or comes from a mountain. I mean, wafikum. So water's color, taste, or smell changing significantly, even if it were plenty, even if it's a lot of water, every change because of blending with something other than soil or sea salt, from which the water is easily protected, and prevents calling that liquid mere water, removes the purifying property. So he said, does sea salt provide any benefits to the water, or is it just that it doesn't make it impure? Just here, the extent of the issue is that this material that dissolves in the water will not remove the purifying power of the water. You said, what about the mixture of oil with water since they don't actually blend together? This does not remove the purifying power of the water. That's a good question. I was thinking how I'm going to squeeze that in there about the oil. So, according to the rule we learned, you take that and you apply it to the rule. Does oil, when it gets in the water, does it blend with the water, fuse with the water? No, it does not. How do you know? How can you tell? The scholar said it's blended when you cannot tell the difference between the water and what's in the water by your naked eye. If the naked eye cannot distinguish between the water and what's in the water, then it's blended. Some said it's not blended if you can separate them. So oil does not blend with water, so you can still use that water for purification. These rules like this, there's many benefits in there. That's fiqh. Fiqh is a prophetic knowledge. It's prophetic knowledge. This is not a Western college uh, seminar. So you have to unlock your mind. Unlock your mind and allow your mind to assimilate this reasoning that comes in fiqh. That will benefit you a lot in how you think. And also, these rules are like this because Islam is a universal religion. So this is a religion for all the people all over the world until the end of time. So when you learn these details like this, you see how abstract the concepts are. These concepts in fiqh are so abstract because these things really apply anywhere you are. So you might be, who knows where, you might be in a dungeon in China somewhere, who knows. You'll be able to apply these rules here. So if what mixes with your water and changes it significantly is something from which the water is easily protected, usually, then if that stuff gets in your water and changes it significantly to the point that you don't call it water anymore, then that liquid loses its purifying power. It is blended when the water cannot be distinguished from that other material by the naked eye, like tea, ink, milk, sulfur, etc. It was also said that the substance that does not fuse with the water is what can be separated from it. So whenever it's difficult to keep that foreign material out of the water, then it will not remove the purifying power of the water. How's that going to be? You have two cases here. Either that foreign material is in the water's place where the water is settled, or that foreign material is in the water's pathway. So when it's difficult to keep some foreign material that blends with the water out of the water, which is going to be because it's in the water's place or it's in the water's pathway, then this will not remove the purifying power of the water. Is that clear? Do you have any question about this issue? Like if there's algae, yes, correct. Algae, for example, this will not remove the purifying power of the water. So we said there are three reasons why water would not be purifying. A small amount used in an obligation, we covered that last week. Water's color, taste, or smell changing significantly, we just covered that now. And here, water contaminated by filth in it. We'll save this case of water contaminated by filth for next week, inshallah. And hopefully we'll cover that whole case together without breaking it up.